The ship wasn't supposed to be there. Above the desert moon of Ketras 4, the human scout vessel Huron drifted silently, scanning mineral-rich ridges below. The mission was peaceful, routine, and boring. Pilot Lieutenant Mara Hensley yawned. Behind the console, sipping recycled coffee, not knowing this day would change everything. Without warning, her console blinked red. Incoming projectile? She said aloud, confused. The computer confirmed, trajectory locked, impact in 10 seconds. But there were no enemy ships. No warnings, no demands. Just a single plasma bolt, streaking straight toward them from the nearby mountain range. Why would anyone fire on a scout ship? She whispered. The Huron took the hit. The blast tore through the starboard engine, sending the small vessel tumbling through low orbit. Mara barely stabilized it before slamming into the upper cliffs. Metal screamed, sparks flew. The cockpit, filled with smoke. Gravity ripped her down toward the canyon floor like a stone. She never saw the second shot, but orbital scans would later show that it had been fired, and that was all Earth needed. 4 days later, the first response ship arrived. Not a warship, not yet. Just a diplomatic vessel carrying Ambassador Carrick and a detachment of peacekeepers. They landed at the nearby outpost of the Falari, an insectoid race known for their tall, thin limbs and glass-like armor. The Falari leaders insisted it was a mistake. A misfire. An automated defense turret meant for raiders. But the turret had scanned and targeted the Huron manually. They had lied. Ambassador Carrick requested the footage. The Falari refused. He demanded to inspect the weapon. They blocked him. Then someone cut the fuel lines of the diplomatic vessel during the night. No one claimed responsibility, but Carrick knew. And Earth had no patience for games. The footage from the Huron was recovered by a deep-range salvage team. It showed not one, but 2 plasma bolts and a heat signature matching a cloaked ground unit, firing from behind a ridge. It wasn't a turret. It was a soldier, and Mara Hensley was now in a coma from the crash. The Falari embassy released a new statement. The shooter was a rogue mercenary not under our control. We deeply regret the misunderstanding. But the evidence kept stacking. Another human supply shuttle was buzzed by Falari fighter drones. 2 technicians were detained without reason. One was returned bruised, the other never came back. Back on Earth, the Council met in emergency session. And for the first time in 20 years, they voted to arm civilian colonies. The people of Mars dug out their old defense cannons. Orbital shipyards on Titan received rushed orders for assault corvettes. A single misfire had opened a wound too deep to ignore. But no declaration of war was made. Not yet. In Sector 9, a new human stealth ship, the HFY, was deployed with a simple mission: find the shooter. Confirm if it was sanctioned. Determine if the Falari government lied intentionally. The HFY went dark the moment it left Sol space. 3 weeks passed. Then one morning, across every major human colony, a broadcast lit up. It was leaked video. Footage captured by HFY's deep-cam probe. A squad of Falari soldiers, cloaked, firing on what looked like a human cargo crawler. No insignia, no warnings. The video ended with the human crew being dragged off. No bodies, no survivors. Public outcry erupted. Protests turned into riots in the lower domes of Europa. On Ganymede, a military shipyard was taken over by civilians demanding weapons. Earth's calm diplomacy began to fracture, but the Council still hesitated. Until they received one more message. This one was not intercepted. It was sent directly. And it was simple: Earth, stay out. Ketras 4 is under new jurisdiction. Your people are no longer welcome. It was signed by a Falari commander whose name matched records from 3 years earlier. That commander had attended peace talks, shook hands with Earth leaders, promised cooperation. Now he was telling Earth to leave, The council had heard enough. Fleet Admiral Reese Venter was given temporary wartime authority. Within 48 hours, human warships began deploying across the contested sectors. The people who once believed peace would last forever now watched from domes and bunkers, holding their breath. Mothers covered their children's ears. Fathers sent encrypted messages to relatives still on border colonies. Satellites swarmed space like angry hornets. The silence before the first retaliation was heavier than gravity. And then came the command, from deep within the Ashfall's bridge. A single message was transmitted toward Ketras 4. This is Earth's response to your misfire. 10 kinetic rods, each the size of a building, dropped from orbit with no engines, no explosives, just mass and speed. Each one struck a Falari military site directly. The impact was silent in space, but on the ground, it shook the sky. No radiation, no civilians harmed. But the message was clear. The age of waiting was over. Humanity had just answered, and fire was only the beginning. Asterisk, the fires on Ketras 4 had not cooled when the message spread. The humans had retaliated. And they didn't miss. The orbital rod strikes turned Falari command bunkers into craters. Communication towers collapsed like melting spires. For the first time in generations, the Falari were silent. Their pride burned with the steel of their war stations. But beneath the ruins, they weren't retreating, they were regrouping. Inside a mountain vault, hidden deep in the northern range, Commander Viktal stood before a wide war table made of obsidian and crystal. Around him were 12 captains, their faces covered in shimmering helms, insect-like mandibles switching beneath them. The humans struck with metal, Viktal said. We strike with teeth. He pointed to the map. Small human colony Nova 6 on the edge of contested space. Lightly defended, remote, full of civilians. A perfect message target, but they will expect a direct attack. One captain warned, we won't attack, Viktal said. We will erase. No witnesses, no trace. Just gone. A single ship left the hidden vault that night. Small, fast, cloaked. Its mission had one goal: eliminate Nova 6 before Earth could respond. Earth had already learned not to wait. Lieutenant Aaron Cade, Special Recon Unit, stood in the rocky hills above Nova 6. He wasn't part of the colony. He was planted there days ago after the first retaliations. Just one man with a sniper rail, drone support, and a cloak that mimicked stone. His eyes stayed fixed on the sky, and he saw the shimmer, not light, but the absence of it, something bending wrong above the clouds. A ripple that shouldn't exist. His visor confirmed, mass signature detected. Incoming at speed. He didn't radio the colony. He didn't warn civilians. He knew there wasn't time. He called Ashfall directly. Target inbound. They're going after Nova 6. I'm engaging early. Then he moved. The first rail round screamed through the sky like thunder. It didn't hit the cloaked ship. It hit the scout drone flying ahead of it. That was enough. The ripple broke. The ship blinked into visibility for a split second. It was triangular, black and sharp as a blade. Cade fired again. This time, the round pierced the front scanner array. The ship jerked, lost altitude, and crashed just outside the colony shield. Perimeter, no explosion. That meant they wanted prisoners. That meant someone was still alive inside, and Cade was already running down the hill. Inside the colony, alarms screamed. Mothers grabbed their children. Doors sealed. The few guards scrambled toward the shield's edge, unsure if this was the beginning of an invasion or another test. Cade reached the wreck first. He moved like a shadow between metal shards, rifle up. Smoke hissed from the cracked hull. Then a shape lunged from the fire. Not a soldier, something worse, a Falari executioner drone. Half organic, half machine. A walking death engine made only for slaughter. Its bladed limbs clashed as it charged. Cade fired 3 rounds straight into its chest. The kinetic round slowed it, cracked its carapace, but didn't stop it. It leaped. He dropped the rifle, rolled under its legs, pulled the shock baton from his side, and jammed it into the soft spot behind its mandibles. The drone spasmed. Then it collapsed. Cade stood, breathing hard, staring into the wreck. A second figure moved slowly from the smoke. This one wasn't mechanical. It was a Falari soldier. Shorter than most. Unarmed. Injured. She raised her hands. "I was not part of the attack," she said in slow, rough English. Cade didn't lower his weapon. "Then what were you doing on that ship?" "I was a prisoner, a translator. They called me useful until I spoke up. Then they struck me, locked me in the pod. I didn't choose this path." Cade narrowed his eyes. Her voice didn't tremble. Her wounds looked real. "But it could be a trap." He tied her hands, scanned her for implants, and called for EVAC. Back aboard HFY. The woman, codenamed Jelavi, was debriefed. She told them what the Falari High Command refused to say. "This wasn't a mistake," she said, her voice steady. "It was planned. Your pilot wasn't fired on by error. It was a test. They wanted to see how humans would react to blood spilled without warning." Captain Dela, commander of HFY, listened carefully. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she gave a single order: "Upload this to the council. And tell them to prepare phase 2. This time, Earth wouldn't wait to be struck. This time the fire would spread." The war hadn't been declared, but soldiers were already dying. Near the asteroid belt of Sector Varn 2, a human convoy disappeared. No distress call, no wreckage, just gone. 3 ships, 72 crew. Vanished into silence. Admiral Reese Venter stood at the edge of the orbital command deck, hands behind his back, staring at the black. "They're not hiding anymore," he said. Behind him, Commander Yelani adjusted the holographic map. Red dots blinked across human territory, places once quiet, now showing sudden interference. "Static or nothing at all. They've been planning this for years," she replied. "We just didn't see it coming until now." Venter didn't blink. "Then we show them what they failed to plan for us." He gave one order: Operation Emberstorm. 5 deep-range stealth cruisers launched that night. Their mission: strike every known Falari listening post in contested space. No warning. No negotiation. Disable communication. Disrupt command. Blind them. And among those 5 ships was the HFY. Inside its darkened bridge, Lieutenant Aaron Cade suited up again. He had barely healed from his last mission. His ribs still ached. But the fire in his eyes had only grown hotter. He stared at the map before him. "We strike here," said Captain Dela. "Listening post Epsilon, hidden in the crust of a dead moon. No civilians, full clearance, shoot to kill." "And her?" Cade asked, nodding toward the observation deck. Jelavi sat in silence, her 4 hands bound in thin stasis cuffs. But her gaze never dropped. "She comes with us," Dela said. "She knows the tunnels. And she volunteered." Cade looked surprised. "You trust her?" Dela didn't answer. She just handed him a second stasis rifle. "If she turns, shoot her. If she doesn't, thank her later." The drop pods launched an hour later. 3 blazing capsules streaked through the black sky and slammed into the cracked crust of the dead moon. Ash and dust lifted into space. Inside the tunnels, darkness moved like a living thing. The Falari didn't use light. Their eyes didn't need it. But the humans brought their own low beam visors and pulse scans. Cade led the squad forward, rifles steady. Jelavi moved beside him, her feet barely making a sound. "The core room is below," she whispered. "Down 4 levels, guarded, heavily. But there is a maintenance shaft here." She tapped a metal wall with her claw. A small hatch hissed open. Cade went in first. The shaft was narrow, hot, and filled with humming cables. At the bottom, they found the core chamber. 2 guards stood in front of the power node. Their weapons looked like jagged spears of molten crystal. Cade didn't hesitate. One shot. One drop, but the second guard fired back too fast. The bolt grazed Cade's shoulder. He spun behind cover, gritting his teeth. Blood leaked, but the pain didn't slow him. Jalavi stepped out before he could stop her. She shouted in Falari, "Don't shoot. I surrender. I was a prisoner, not a traitor." The guard hesitated, and that's when she drew Cade's second rifle from her belt and fired. The guard dropped, stunned, falling in a hiss of sparks. Cade stared at her. "You said you were a translator." He muttered. "I am," she said calmly. "But I also listened. And I remembered where it hurts most. They planted the core bomb in silence." 10 minutes later, the team was back aboard HFY, watching as the listening post's power node collapsed. The whole station folded in on itself. No survivors. No signals. That same night, 3 more Falari posts vanished. The Falari commanders screamed across closed channels, demanding to know how humans had found their secret stations. None of them realized one of their own had given them away. Back on the bridge, Captain Dela stood before Jalavi again. "Why did you help us?" The Falari woman looked tired. "My sister served at one of those listening posts," she said. "When she told me what they planned to do to Nova 6, I tried to stop them. They killed her anyway. They said she hesitated too long. I won't hesitate again." Dela nodded once, and far away on Earth, the council reviewed the footage. The vote came quickly. Full military engagement was now authorized. The war wasn't coming. It had already begun. Asterisk. The stars over Ketra's 4 burned brighter. Now. But it wasn't light, it was war. Above the planet, Earth's fleet had arrived. Not scouts. Not diplomats, warships. Heavy-class destroyers with rail cannons that could split moons. Fighters buzzed between them like hornets circling a wounded beast. The humans didn't speak. They didn't warn. They simply moved into position and waited. Below, inside the Falari mountain citadel, Commander Viktal watched it all from a glowing command stone. The sky above trembled as the human ships settled into orbit. His advisors begged him to open talks. They urged him to send peace terms. He refused. "They are soft," he hissed. "They strike once, then hesitate. We wait, and they will pull back, just like they always do." But even as he spoke, one of his advisors stepped away quietly. Her name was Sarek, and she had lost her son in the first retaliation strike. She did not believe in Viktal's pride anymore. She believed in survival, and she had a secret. That night, she sent a hidden transmission to the humans. A message encoded in an old trade protocol only Earth diplomats still used. "They are planning to burn your colony on Vesper 9. The attack begins in 2 days. No mercy, no survivors." The message reached HFY. Captain Dela read it 3 times. Then she contacted the council. The orders were simple: protect Vesper 9 at any cost. Lieutenant Cade didn't wait for briefing. He was already packing gear. Vesper 9 was a farming world. No shields. No fleet. Just soil, crops, and 3,000 human settlers. If the Falari struck, it would be a massacre. The journey to Vesper 9 took 19 hours at full burn. HFY arrived before the Falari fleet. Barely. They found the colony quiet. Farmers herding. Creatures, children playing in soil. No one knew what was coming. Dela ordered full evacuation. But there were no ships big enough to carry the whole colony. Only 2 freighters and a few small shuttles. They couldn't outrun a full assault, so she made a choice. They would not run. They would fight, using colony tractors, old mining drills, and repurposed harvesters. The humans built defenses. They placed turrets on irrigation towers, dug trenches through crop rows, laid traps using fertilizer tanks filled with igniting gas, and at the center of it all, they planted 1 shield generator from the HFY, just enough to cover the town square. If the Falari wanted a fight, they would have to walk through fire to get it. Jelavi helped too. She knew how the Falari deployed ground squads, where they landed, how they moved. She showed Cade which canyons they might use, where they'd send their drones first. I was trained to translate, she said. But I learned to survive too. The sun was just rising when the sky cracked open. 3 Falari dropships cut through the clouds, like falling blades. Then came the roar fighters screaming overhead, plasma bolts slamming into the ground. Turrets opened fire, trenches lit up with pulse blasts. Explosions turned soil into flame. The war had reached Vesper 9. Cade moved like a ghost between cover, his stasis rifle punching holes in the enemy line. Colonists beside him, once farmers, and engineers now fought like soldiers. Dela stood atop the main grain silo, directing fire with calm rage, but the Falari kept coming. A wave of executioner drones charged the southern gate. One breached the fence. It swung its blade into a colonist's chest. Before it could turn, Cade tackled it, jammed his shock baton into its neck, and roared as it fell. He didn't even notice the second drone sneaking up behind him until it stopped and fell. Jelavi stood over it, holding a plasma spike. Her claws trembled. "Behind you," she said quietly. Cade stared at her, then nodded once. The battle raged for 2 hours. Then, just as the shield generator failed, a scream came through the cloud's earth reinforcements. 3 cruisers dropped into atmosphere, their cannons unleashing hell on the enemy. The Falari fled. What remained of them anyway? Vesper 9 stood scorched. But it stood, and for the first time, the colony saw what happened when humans didn't run. They burned back. The Falari High Council was no longer hiding in the mountains. They were running. After the failure at Vesper 9, human forces spread fast. Strike teams took key outposts. Data vaults were cracked open. Command nodes were silenced. Every hour, the Falari lost ground. And yet, Earth had not declared total war. Not yet, but that was about to change. From deep space came a human signal, long range, encrypted, urgent. It came from a ship thought destroyed during the first misfire. A freighter called Calderon. On board were 3 survivors, and one of them had proof. Jelavi stood in front of the council chamber aboard Earth's flagship, her hands no longer bound. "This was never about territory," she said. "The Falari command never feared humans, they envied them. They studied your growth, your speed, your colonies. They saw it all as a threat, and they wanted to break your will before you grew stronger." She showed them a recovered archive. Hundreds of pages of Falari war planning, years in the making. Each one marked with potential human targets, weak points, and population control scenarios. "They wanted to make your people afraid," she said. "They failed." The chamber fell into silence. Then the final vote passed. Earth was at war. No more warnings, no more defensive strikes. This time, it would end. Admiral Rees-Venter gave the order. Operation Glass Hammer begins now. The HFY, leading a squad of 6 battle cruisers, was sent to the Falari home system Charon. Their objective, disable their core fleet before it could regroup. But the real mission went deeper. Beneath the crust of the 3rd planet, the Falari kept a hidden facility. One that bred their deadliest soldiers. One that trained assassins, drones, and deep war engineers. Destroying it would cripple their ability to continue the war. Cade volunteered for the infiltration. Jelavi asked to go with him. Captain Dela stared at both of them. "You do understand," she said. "This is not a return trip mission." "We understand," Cade replied. She looked at Jelavi. "You're risking your life for a species not your own?" Jelavi didn't flinch. "I've seen what my kind became," she said. "That's not who I am anymore." The 2 of them dropped from orbit in stealth pods. The facility was buried beneath ice and black soil. Only one entrance remained unguarded, the waste vent near the glacier ridge. They crawled through freezing tunnels, climbed ancient ducts, and breached the inner wall using a pulse scrambler. Inside it was silent. Too silent. The Thalari were not unprepared. As Cade and Jelavi moved through the lower chambers, a squad of black armored guards appeared behind them. Plasma bolts lit the dark. Cade dove behind a pipe, returning fire. Jelavi slipped through side vents and attacked from behind. Her claws cut, but her heart raced. These were her people. But they didn't recognize her anymore. She didn't stop. Together, they reached the central core. The reactor thrummed with raw energy. All around it were tanks filled with new drones, some still forming. This is where they build their monsters. Cade muttered. They planted the charge. Before they could escape, another wave arrived. This time, it wasn't soldiers. It was a creature twice the size of a man, armored like a tank, fused with technology. It roared. Jelavi froze. It's a Warburn. Gen class, she whispered. My brother was turned into one of these. Cade raised his weapon. Then let's free him from it. The creature charged. It slammed Cade into a wall. His visor cracked. Jelavi leaped onto its back, stabbing with a stolen spike. Sparks flew. It grabbed her by the throat and threw her. She hit the ground hard. Didn't move. Cade rose, bleeding. His rifle was broken. He pulled the detonator from his belt. The creature saw the device. Charged again. Cade didn't run. He pressed the button. The explosion ripped through the tunnels. Fire lit the sky above as the facility collapsed. Hours later, aboard the Ashfall, Dela received the report. No signal from Cade, no trace of Jelavi, but the core was gone. The breeding program was over, and two names were now whispered among soldiers as legends. Cade, the last shadow. Jelavi, the Thalari who chose fire, *. They thought he was dead. For 3 days, there was no signal. No movement. No breath from the ice-covered ruins where the Warburn facility once stood. The wreckage had gone cold. The Ashfall scanned it 100 times. No life signs. Then on the 4th day, something moved. A flare, just one. Weak. Barely enough to register. But it was real. Aboard the command deck, Captain Dela leaned forward. That's Cade, she whispered. It has to be. A rescue pod dropped fast through the frozen clouds. It landed in smoke and wind. The crew rushed into the crumbled ruin with pulse rifles and medkits, and they found him. Cade was alive barely, covered in frost, blood, and shrapnel. But breathing. Wrapped around him was a second figure. Jela, single quotes vi. Her body shielded his. She had taken the worst of the collapse. Her left arm was gone, her breathing shallow, but she had not let go of him. Even in the dark, even in the silence, back aboard the Ashfall, med teams worked for hours. They saved Cade, and they stabilized her. She opened her eyes slowly. Did we do it? She asked. Cade sat beside her, bandaged and pale, nodding. We did, he said. The core's gone. The war's ending. Because of you, the news spread across human colonies like wildfire. The Warburn were no more. The Thalari fleet had lost its secret edge. And with Earth's forces pressing every front, the High Council had only one path left, surrender. But before the treaty could be signed, one last voice spoke from the shadows. Sarek, the Thalari advisor who had leaked the warning about Vesper-9, stepped forward in the heart of the burning capital. She carried a white banner in one hand, and in the other Vital's broken blade. The one who started this is gone, she said. We choose peace now, not because we are weak, but because we see now who truly carries the fire. Humans didn't cheer. They didn't smile. They simply lowered their weapons and walked away. The war was over. Months passed. Cities rebuilt. Colonies healed. The names of the dead were carved into stone. And among them, two names stood tallest, one human, one Thalari. They were not lovers. They were not heroes by choice. They were two strangers thrown into war, who made a choice again and again to protect, to fight, to stand. Cade visited Jelavi often during her recovery. She no longer wore chains, no longer feared being seen. Children on human worlds looked at her like a storybook figure, the alien who saved a world. One day, as they stood under the orange sky of Vesper-9, Cade looked at her with tired eyes. "Would you ever go back?" He asked. "To my people?" she said. "No, I'm still Filari." "But I am not theirs anymore." He nodded. "You're one of us now," he said. She looked away, then back at him. "No," she whispered. "Not one of you. But I stand with you. And maybe that's more powerful than becoming one of you." The wind moved the grass. The sun warmed the soil dot, and somewhere, far away in space, new stars began to shine bright, sharp, and unafraid, because humanity had answered fire with fire, and in doing so, they lit the path for peace.